The crack of Lieutenant Colonel David Harrison's coffee mug hitting the desk echoed through his office. Through the armory window, someone he'd never seen before was handling his personal McMillan TAC-50 sniper rifle. Not just handling it, polishing it like she'd done it 1,000 times. His boots hammered against the floor as he charged across the room, his massive frame blocking the light as he towered over the woman. She was young, maybe 27, with dark hair tied back and wearing work coveralls that looked like they'd been washed too many times. Her hands moved across the huge rifle barrel with careful, gentle strokes. "Get your hands off that weapon," Harrison barked. His voice bounced off the concrete walls of the Fort Bragg Armory. 45 elite soldiers froze mid-task. Some had been oiling rifle parts. Others were sorting ammunition. Now everyone was staring. The woman's hands never stopped moving. She kept polishing, her cloth following the same smooth path along the barrel. Harrison's face went red. Nobody ignored him in his own armory. "I said step back from that rifle," he repeated, louder this time. His hand moved to his hip, resting near his sidearm. It was automatic, something he did when people didn't listen. Elena Cross looked up slowly. Her brown eyes were steady, not scared at all. "Sir, I'm doing my assigned work," she said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Equipment maintenance. They sent me here this morning." Harrison grabbed the clipboard from the workbench next to her. Work order 882 Delta stared back at him. Assigned by Base Equipment Office. Routine inspection of all precision weapons. He read it again, then crumpled the paper in his fist. "I don't care what some desk worker wrote down," he said. "Civilians don't touch these weapons without my direct approval. Especially not a contractor who probably thinks this is just another piece of machinery." A few soldiers laughed. Staff Sergeant Martinez, a thick-shouldered man everyone called Brick, grinned and nudged the guy next to him. But Sergeant Major Tom Reeves didn't laugh. The older man, with gray hair at his temples and scars on his hands, watched Elena carefully. He'd seen something in how she held that rifle. Something that didn't match her job title. Elena set down her polishing cloth and stood up. At 5 feet 5 inches, she looked tiny next to Harrison. "Sir, this rifle shows signs of copper fouling in the barrel. The bolt lugs have minor wear patterns." And someone adjusted the trigger pull to about 2.5 pounds. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was reading a grocery list. The armory went quiet, really quiet. Captain Ryan Foster, a 26-year-old officer standing near the door, felt his stomach drop. That trigger had been modified 3 weeks ago by their weapons specialist. It wasn't in any official paperwork. How did this maintenance worker know? Harrison's eyes narrowed. "How do you know about the trigger?" Elena picked up her cloth again. "I read the borescope results and check the mechanism. It's my job to notice these things." She was lying. Foster could tell. Borescopes didn't show trigger weights. You had to pull the trigger with a gauge to measure that. And this woman had just guessed the exact weight. "Listen here." Harrison stepped closer, using his size to intimidate her. "I've been doing this for 18 years. I know when someone's hiding something. You know too much about weapons that aren't in any manual." Elena's jaw tightened just slightly. "Sir, I'm just trying to do my maintenance work and leave." "Not happening," Harrison shot back. "Brick, escort this woman out of my armory before she damages something expensive." Martinez moved forward, reaching for Elena's arm with a smirk. "Come on, sweetheart. Time to go back to mopping floors and let the real soldiers handle the dangerous stuff." Elena stepped back smoothly, avoiding his grab without making it look rude. "Commander Harrison, if I leave now, these weapons won't pass inspection next week. That's going to create problems for your unit." Harrison felt his blood pressure rising. This woman, this nobody contractor, was standing here arguing with him in front of his entire team. "You think I care about your maintenance schedule? Get out of my armory. Now." But Sergeant Major Reeves spoke up, his gravelly voice cutting through the tension. "Sir, hold on a second." Harrison turned to glare at him. Reeves was the only person on base who could question him without getting destroyed for it. 24 years of service bought you that right. "What is it, Sergeant Major?" Reeves walked over to where Elena had been working. He picked up the borescope she'd been using, then examined the McMillan. "Sir, she's right about the copper fouling, and the bolt lugs do show wear. That's not information you get from a quick look. He studied Elena with those sharp gray eyes. Where'd you learn to read a rifle like that, Miss Cross? Elena's face stayed blank, but Foster saw her hands tense for just a second. I had a good teacher, she said simply. Reeves smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a hunter who'd just spotted tracks. I bet you did. The question is, what kind of teacher shows a civilian maintenance worker how to read weapon were patterns that most of our own soldiers would miss? The armory felt smaller suddenly. Everyone was watching Elena now, not with mockery anymore, but with suspicion. Harrison crossed his arms. You know what? I think Reeves is onto something. Maybe we should test this knowledge of yours. See if you actually know what you're talking about, or if you're just repeating things you memorized. Elena looked from Harrison to Reeves and back again. Sir, that's really not necessary. I just want to finish my work. But Foster could see something shift in her posture. She was preparing for something. He just couldn't tell what. Scared, Martinez called out from the back of the crowd. Don't worry, honey. We won't laugh when you fail. Something flashed across Elena's face. Not fear. Something harder. Something that made Foster take an actual step backward. For just a moment, the quiet maintenance worker disappeared, and he saw someone else entirely. Someone dangerous. Fine, Elena said, her voice dropping lower. But let's make it worth everyone's time. Harrison grinned like a shark. Oh, this should be good. What do you have in mind? Elena pointed to the weapons rack. Give me any rifle in this room. I'll field strip it, clean it, and put it back together. Blindfolded. If I do it right, you let me finish my work and never bother me again. If I fail, I'll transfer off this base today. The armory exploded with noise. Soldiers were talking over each other, some laughing, others looking skeptical. Martinez was practically doubling over. She's insane, he wheezed. This is going to be hilarious. But Reeves wasn't laughing. He walked to a locked cabinet and pulled out an M110 semi-automatic sniper system. The rifle was complicated with dozens of small parts that had to go back in exactly the right order. Even experienced soldiers sometimes struggle with it. Standard qualification rules, Reeves announced, his voice cutting through the chatter. Complete disassembly, cleaning, and reassembly. You've got 20 minutes. He held up a black blindfold that looked like it came from the medical building. Elena took the blindfold, but didn't put on yet. Instead, she looked around at all the faces watching her. Her eyes lingered on each person like she was memorizing them. When she looked at Harrison, something in her gaze made the big man shift his weight uncomfortably. 20 minutes seems like a lot, Elena said, tying the blindfold over her eyes. Let's make it 6. The room erupted again. This time, even the veterans were shaking their heads. Martinez was laughing so hard, he had to lean against the wall. But Foster was watching Elena's hands. They weren't shaking, not even a little. Elena's fingers found the M110, like she could see through the fabric. She located the takedown pins and pressed them with quick, sure movements. The upper and lower receivers separated smoothly. Foster glanced at his watch. 15 seconds. Her hands danced across the weapon, finding each part without fumbling. Bull carrier group came out. Charging handle extracted. Buffer spring from the stock. She laid each piece on the cleaning mat in a neat pattern, then pulled out cleaning supplies. 2 minutes in, and the laughter had stopped. Elena was moving like water, flowing from one task to the next without pause. She cleaned the bolt carrier with quick, practiced strokes, then moved to the firing pin. Her fingers checked each part for wear or damage, her touch light but thorough. Foster couldn't look away. This wasn't someone who'd read a manual. This was muscle memory built over years. For minutes and 20 seconds, Elena began reassembly. Her hands moved backward through the process, each component sliding into place with mechanical precision. No second-guessing. No hositashchen. The charging handle clicked home. The bolt carrier seated properly. The receivers locked together with a solid sound that made several soldiers flinch. 5 minutes and 42 seconds total. Elena removed the blindfold and set the completed M110 on the mat. Her breathing was steady, like she just finished a light walk. Reeves picked up the rifle and ran it through every function check he knew. Trigger response. Safety mechanisms. Bolt operation. Everything was perfect, better than perfect. The weapon looked cleaner than it had been in months. Holy, someone whispered from the back. Martinez had stopped smiling. His face was pale, like he'd just seen something impossible. Harrison stared at the rifle in Reeves' hands, his mouth slightly open. Foster checked his watch again, not believing what he'd just seen. 5 minutes and 42 seconds. That was faster than their best weapons specialist could do it with full vision. Elena started packing up her cleaning supplies like nothing unusual had happened. But something had shifted in the room. The soldiers weren't looking at her with amusement anymore. There was uncertainty now, respect in some faces, fear in others. Foster's mind was racing. Where does someone learn to do that? Who teaches a civilian maintenance worker to break down a rifle blindfolded in under 6 minutes? Where did you learn that? Foster heard himself ask. His voice sounded strange in the quiet armory. Elena paused, her back still turned to everyone. I read the manual. Another lie. Everyone knew it. Manuals didn't teach the kind of speed they just witnessed. That took thousands of hours of practice under someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Harrison's face had gone from red to almost purple. Being shown up by a contractor in front of his entire team was clearly eating him alive. Nice trick, he said, his voice tight. But taking apart a rifle doesn't make you special. Any monkey could do that with enough practice. Elena turned to face him. I never said I was special, sir. I said I was maintenance. I fix things. Is that right? Harrison's voice took on an edge that made Foster nervous. Because I'm starting to think you're not just maintenance. Maybe you're something else. Maybe you're here watching us for someone. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Several soldiers shifted uncomfortably. In their world, after everything that had happened in the past 20 years, security concerns were serious business. Anyone with unexplained skills was automatically suspicious. Sir, I think you're going too far, Foster said carefully. Harrison whipped around to glare at him. Stay out of this, Captain. He turned back to Elena. Are you former military? Did you serve somewhere, and now you're working here? Elena met his stare without blinking. No, sir. I've been a civilian my whole life. It was technically true, Foster realized, but the way she said it felt carefully worded, like she was picking each word to avoid lying while also avoiding the truth. Then explain how a civilian learns to strip an M110 in under 6 minutes blindfolded, Harrison demanded. Explain how you know about modifications that aren't written down anywhere. Explain why you handle weapons like you've been doing it professionally for years. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Foster could see her thinking, weighing something in her mind. Finally, she spoke, barely above a whisper. Some people have different childhoods than others, sir. Before Harrison could respond, Chief Warrant Officer Lisa Chong pushed through the crowd. Chong was one of only 4 women in the Special Operations Unit, and she'd fought hard for every bit of respect she'd earned. She wasn't about to let some mysterious contractor steal her spotlight. This is ridiculous, Chong announced, her voice sharp. So she can clean a rifle quickly. My grandmother could probably do that with enough practice. It doesn't prove anything. Elena turned to look at Chong. The 2 women sized each other up. Chong was taller, more muscular, and carried herself with aggressive confidence. Elena, in her faded coveralls, looked almost fragile by comparison. You're right, Elena said. It doesn't prove anything. I should go. She bent to collect her toolkit, but Reeves spoke again. Actually, I don't think you should go anywhere yet, Miss Cross. Everyone turned to stare at Sergeant Major Reeves. His weathered face showed something Foster had rarely seen there. Genuine interest. You see, Miss Cross, I've been doing this for 24 years, Reeves said slowly. I've watched every type of soldier, contractor, and wannabe walk through these doors. And in all that time, I've never seen anyone handle weapons the way you just did. He walked closer to Elena, studying her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. The speed was impressive, sure, but it was the technique that caught my attention. The way you positioned your hands, the order you took things apart, even how you cleaned each piece. That's not self-taught. That's professional training from someone who really knew what they were doing. Elena's jaw tightened, barely noticeable. I had a good teacher, like I said. Reeves nodded slowly. I'm sure you did. The question is, what kind of teacher shows civilian maintenance workers advanced weapon techniques that most of our own people don't know? The armory had gone so quiet that Foster could hear the air conditioning humming. Every soldier was watching Elena, waiting to hear what she'd say. But Elena didn't answer Reeves' question. Instead, she walked over to the weapons rack and selected the McMillan TAC-50 she'd been polishing earlier. The massive rifle was one of the most powerful in the world, capable of hitting targets over a mile away. She lifted it carefully, checking its weight and balance. "If you really want to test my knowledge," Elena said quietly, "let's do it the right way." Harrison's eyes went wide. "What are you suggesting?" Elena looked at him directly. "Take me to the long-range course. Give me 5 shots at 900 meters. If I can't hit the target, I'll leave this base today and never come back. If I can hit it, you let me do my job in peace." The armory exploded with voices. Soldiers were arguing with each other, some saying it was a waste of time, others wanting to see what would happen. Martinez was shaking his head. 900 meters? That's insane. Most of us can't hit that consistently, and we train for years. But Foster saw something in Elena's face that made his pulse quicken. She wasn't bluffing. She knew she could make those shots. Harrison looked like Christmas had come early. Perfect. And when you miss every single shot, we'll know exactly what you are. A faker. Within minutes, they'd moved to Fort Bragg's extended range facility. The course stretched out like a concrete valley, with electronic targets that could be placed at any distance up to 1.5 kilometers. The wind was picking up, making the flags snap and dance. Foster watched Elena's eyes track the wind, her head tilting slightly like she was doing math in her head. Reeves activated the electronic system. A target appeared at exactly 900 meters, a small circle that looked like a dot from where they stood. Even with a scope, hitting it would require exceptional skill. 5 rounds, Reeves announced formally. Prone position. You need 4 hits minimum to pass. Shooter, are you ready? Elena knelt at the firing line and adjusted the McMillan's bipod legs. Her movements were smooth and practiced. She worked the bolt to chamber around, the sound crisp in the afternoon air. Around her, 45 operators formed a semicircle. Some looked skeptical. Others seemed genuinely curious. Foster positioned himself where he could watch both Elena and the target display screen. Elena settled into her prone position. The huge rifle nestled against her shoulder like it belonged there. She adjusted the scope, taking her time despite everyone watching. Through the scope, Foster knew the target would look clear and sharp. But 900 meters was far enough that wind, temperature, even the Earth's rotation could affect the bullet's path. Her breathing slowed. Foster had seen enough snipers to recognize the pattern. Deep breaths, then slower, then almost stopping. Her heart rate was dropping, entering that calm state where the best shooters lived. The first shot broke with a sound like thunder. The rifle jumped against her shoulder, but Elena rode the recoil smoothly. Through the electronic display, Foster saw the impact register. "Hit!" Reeves called out, reading the screen. 9.3. Murmurs ran through the crowd. It was a solid shot, better than most of them could do under pressure. But one shot could be luck. Elena cycled the bolt, the spent shell casing flying out in a golden arc. Her position stayed rock solid. The rifle tracked back to the target naturally, without visible effort. The second shot came 30 seconds later. Hit. 9.8. Now the murmurs were changing tone. 2 good hits in a row meant skill, not luck. Martinez moved closer to the display screen, squinting at it like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Chong stood with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Elena paused before the third shot. Foster watched her wait, her finger resting lightly on the trigger. She was waiting for something. Then the wind shifted, dropping for just a moment, and she fired. The electronic system registered instantly. Hit. 10.0. Perfect center. Harrison actually walked up to the display screen and stared at it. Check the system, he ordered the range technician. Make sure it's working right. The technician, a young specialist named Davis, looked offended. Sir, the system is working fine. That's a perfect shot at 900 meters. Foster's heart was pounding. He glanced at Elena. She'd chambered the 4th round, and was settling back into position. Her breathing was still controlled, steady like she just started instead of being 3 shots in. Around him, the crowd had gone completely silent. Everyone was watching this impossible thing happen right in front of them. The 4th shot was another perfect 10. The bullet struck within inches of the 3rd shot. Elena was shooting a group so tight you could cover it with a quarter at a distance where most people couldn't see the target with their naked eyes. 2 perfect 10s, Reeves announced. His voice had changed. There was admiration in it now, mixed with something else. Maybe concern. Elena cycled the bolt for the final time. 1 round left. Foster expected her to take careful aim like before. Instead, she did something that made his blood turn cold. She adjusted the rifle slightly, then removed her eye from the scope completely. "What's she doing?" Martinez whispered. Reeves' voice was grim. "I think she's about to show off." Elena fired the 5th shot using only the rifle's iron sights. The tiny metal posts that were meant as backups, not primary aiming tools. Shooting accurately with iron sights at 900 meters was considered nearly impossible. It required perfect eyesight, flawless technique, and years of dedicated practice. The target system registered the impact. Hit 10.0. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The only sound was wind whistling across the range and waves crashing somewhere in the distance. Elena had just fired a perfect qualification score, and she'd done the last shot with backup sights. Foster felt like the ground had tilted under his feet. This wasn't just good shooting. This was world-class precision that took a lifetime to develop. Elena safed the rifle and stood slowly. Her face gave nothing away, but Foster noticed something that made his stomach drop. Her hands were completely steady. No shaking from adrenaline. No excitement. No sign that she'd just done something extraordinary. For her, shooting a perfect score at 900 meters appeared to be normal. "That's impossible," Martinez breathed. His earlier mockery had completely vanished. Harrison stared at the electronic display, showing 5 hits, 3 of them perfect scores. His face had gone pale, and his hands were trembling slightly. "Nobody shoots like that," he muttered. "Not without professional training. Years of it." Elena was already cleaning the McMillan, her movements careful and thorough. "Is the test over, sir?" Reeves stepped forward, his expression mixed respect with deep concern. "Miss Cross, I've worked with Olympic shooters, Marine Corps Legends, SEAL snipers who've made impossible shots in combat. What you just did, that's not civilian marksmanship. That's elite-level precision." Elena continued cleaning, her attention focused on removing every trace of carbon from the bolt. "I had good instruction." Reeves pressed harder. "From who? Where does someone learn to shoot like that?" For a moment, Elena's steady composure cracked. Her hands paused. Something flickered across her face that looked like pain or maybe grief. Then it disappeared, and her mask slipped back into place. "That's not something I can talk about." Foster caught the phrasing. "Not, I don't want to talk about it. Not, it's not relevant. But I can't talk about it." That suggested classified information, security restrictions, things that civilian maintenance workers didn't typically deal with. Harrison stepped forward, and Foster could see fear replacing the man's earlier anger. "Ma'am, I need you to answer directly. Are you now, or have you ever been employed by any military or intelligence organization?" Elena looked up from the rifle, meeting Harrison's eyes steadily. "No, sir. I have never been employed by any military organization." Again, Foster noticed the careful wording. She'd never worked for the military. But what about other government agencies? What about organizations that didn't officially exist? Harrison opened his mouth to ask another question, but Chong interrupted. "If you're not military and you're not intelligence, then what are you?" Elena stood slowly, slinging the rifle. For a long moment, she seemed to be weighing something, deciding how much truth she could safely reveal. "I'm exactly what my papers say," she said finally. "A maintenance contractor trying to do her job." Harrison's voice was flat. "Maintenance contractors don't shoot like that. I don't care what your paperwork claims. People with your abilities don't just appear out of nowhere." Elena's response was quiet but hit like a bomb. "Don't they? Where do you think people with these skills go when they're done using them?" The question made several soldiers exchange glances. Foster suddenly understood what Elena was implying. If she had the shooting skills they'd just witnessed, and if those skills came from professional use, then maybe her presence here wasn't random. Maybe it was refuge. Reeves was the first to say it out loud. "You're retired." Elena didn't confirm or deny. She just started collecting her equipment. But her silence was answer enough. The maintenance worker disguise no longer worked. Everyone had seen what lay underneath. Retired from what? Harrison demanded. What organization creates shooters who can do what you just did? Elena paused, her hand resting on her equipment case. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but in the silent range, every word carried clearly. The kind that doesn't exist on paper. The kind that sends people to places that aren't on maps to do things that never happened. The admission sent ice through Foster's veins. Elena wasn't just former military. She was former something much more secretive, much more dangerous. Harrison took an actual step backward, his tactical mind working through the implications. If Elena was former intelligence or black operations, then his treatment of her could have consequences that reached far beyond Fort Bragg. "Ma'am," Harrison said, and his voice had completely changed. "I think we may have started off wrong here." Elena looked at him, and Foster saw bone-deep exhaustion in her eyes. Not physical tiredness, but the weariness of someone carrying secrets too heavy for one person. "Commander, all I wanted was to clean some weapons and finish my shift. I never wanted any of this to happen." "But it did happen," Reeves said gently. "And now we have questions that need answers." Elena shouldered her equipment bag. "Some questions shouldn't be asked, Sergeant Major. Some answers cost more than anyone wants to pay." She started walking toward the range exit. Harrison called after her. "Miss Cross, we're not finished here." Elena stopped, but didn't turn around. "Yes, sir, we are. You want to know if I could handle your weapons? I showed you I can. You want to know if I was a security threat? I've proven I'm not. Anything beyond that is above your clearance level." The casual mention of clearance levels from someone who supposedly didn't have them was the final piece. Foster understood now. They were dealing with someone whose background wasn't just classified. It was classified at levels that even special operations commanders couldn't access. "Wait," Foster called out, surprising himself. "Before you go, who trained you? Someone taught you to shoot like that?" Elena finally turned back. Foster saw something in her expression that made his breath catch. Deep loss. Profound grief. "He was the greatest there ever was," she said simply, "and he's been gone for 4 years. Then Elena Cross walked away, leaving 45 elite soldiers staring after her in stunned silence. But Foster would learn in the coming hours that Elena's story was far from finished. Reeves disappeared into the secure communications building, and when he emerged 30 minutes later, his face was gray. "Commander Harrison, Captain Foster, Chief Chong." Conference room. Now, the secure room was small and windowless. Reeves activated a terminal and entered clearance codes that Foster had never seen before. What appeared on the screen made everyone step back. Elena Cross's real file. Not the maintenance records, but her actual operational history. The words seemed to burn. Silent wind. Defense Intelligence Agency Special Operations. 53 confirmed eliminations over 7 years. World record holder for longest confirmed elimination at 3,540 meters. Sole survivor of Operation Dark Horizon. Foster's hands went numb. They hadn't been dealing with a maintenance worker with mysterious skills. They'd been confronting one of the most lethal operators in American history. She retired after her unit was killed. Reeves read. Severe PTSD. Survivor's guilt. The DIA gave her a new identity to help her disappear. Harrison looked like he might be sick. "We accused her of being a security threat. We mocked her. We treated her like she was nobody." Before anyone could respond, alarms started blaring. "All units, unscheduled military aircraft approaching. Transport requesting immediate landing. They're asking for Silent Wind by name. They say it's urgent.